So hello everybody, this is Greg Wagner with basically the demonstration for strings and arrays. I didn't put the slides together for today's class mainly because I thought it'd just be kind of better to show you. This will be a pretty brief lecture, but I just want to get you kind of an idea of how strings and arrays work. Strings and arrays work before the exam next week. And so for this lecture, first off, I just want to demonstrate basically how arrays work, but we'll also go over the new, a couple other registers called the ESD and ESI and EDI, which are the extended source index, we're basically the front of an array, and the EDI, which is the extended destination index, which is where you're going to save arrays that you're managing. So I'm going to make a couple of arrays, just kind of as a review. So I'm going to call one array 1, which we're going to make a byte array, so it just uses 1 byte. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the number 100 and duplicate question mark. And so what this syntax shows is this is how many. If you do this syntax with the duplicate, this is say I have 100 elements, and I'm going to put in the kind of null character with the question mark. So this is what actually is just going to put zeros in here. So I'm going to build this just to make sure it actually runs. And success. And then I'm going to have array 1, and then I'm also going to call one array 2. Make this a byte, and I'll make this the same size, but I'm going to do in the duplicates. Put the number 100 in hex. And so what I want to do is I want to initially just show you how to copy something from one array to another. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a basic loop that looks at the values. So I'm going to start off by moving into the EAX number 100. So this is, or I'm sorry, I'll do ECX, the number 100. And then I'm going to put in here I'll make a label. So we'll call it S loop, so start a loop. And then I'm going to basically have a way to get I want to get the values. So first off, I'm going to move into the EDI, so the destination values. I'm going to put offset array 1, so if you remember, offset gives you the address. I'm going to move ESI, the source index, offset array 2. So what I want to do is move the values from array 2 to array 1. And then what I'll do next is I'm going to make a basic loop. So what the loop's going to do is I want to copy the values from one spot to another. So I'm going to move into the EAX. So remember, you can't move directly from memory to memory. You have to actually move to a register first, or you have to have at least one register value in here. So I'm going to move the ESI value plus and 1 second, I need to put a limit, so I'm going to put in the EAX. I'll put EAX 100, ECX 0. And so I'm going to press the ESI plus the ECX. And so if you guys have encountered pointers, this is basically what we're doing. We're adding essentially addresses. So these are one-step bytes, and so we're going to basically move this value 0 to the ESI value. And then I'm going to move into the EDI plus ECX value that's in EAX. So basically just copy the value from one array to another. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to our counter value ECX. I'm going to add 1 to the value in here. So remember, it's going to add this value to this and then put it in here, into the ECX here. And then I'm going to compare the ECX to the EAX. And then I'm going to jump if less than to J loop. So let me build this to see if it actually works. A couple errors. Oh, this is too big. So if this is too big because I only have 2 nibbles. So I'm going to move this, change this value to 10. Let's do the other, and then I'm going to try building it again. So this seems to work. So I'm going to put a breakpoint along these boundaries. So you notice I have the registers already set up. If you guys to recall, I know it's been a few weeks. While you're in debug mode, so while you see this character stopped here, if you go to debug Windows, one more time, debug Windows, registers, you can see the register values up here. Now set memory 1 up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to step, and so I put 100 into EAX, 64 in hex, put a 0 in ECX. So I'm going to do offset array 2. And so array 2 is going to be this value here. And so if I copy and paste this value and then go to memory, again to get to memory, go to debug Windows, debug Windows, that's the third one from the bottom here. I copy and paste this value here. Enter. I'll try this one more time. Copy, paste. Notice how there's all 10s and all 100 slots from here. You can see this in this location here. And so I'm going to go back to registers. Notice how EDI, and then have the destination register, this value here. If I copy and paste and then look at the memory here, you can see it's all empty. And it's a slot above it. So now what I'm going to do is go back to the registers. I'm going to move the value here. So I put EAX and made a little mistake here. I'm copying all the values. So what I want to do, since this is 1 byte, I'm going to do AL and AL. And so this will actually move it to the right locations. So let me try it again. Notice here, I'm moving to the AL, and I made a mistake here because I'm actually writing over these values. So I'm going to change this to BL. I'm going to try this one more time. So this time I'm going to move a value into the BL. So I have 10, so this value here. And I'm going to copy it to this location. So I'm going to copy and paste this destination value here. Actually, it should be here. So notice here, I'm copying this value into this spot. And then I'm adding 1 to ECX. So So the value is 1 here. Comparing ECX with EEX, these values are different. And it's going to jump back up to this position. So I'm going to do this all the way and I'll hit continue until all the values are copied over. So this is kind of just the basic explanation of the ESI registers and the EDI registers. Basically, the ESI is where you're going to your source register, and the EDI is going to be the second one. So I want to do something a little bit more complicated now. I want to do some manipulation of arrays. And so arrays are essentially, again, manipulation of strings. So basically, strings are just essentially the just an array of characters, essentially. So what I want to do is I'm going to do something called a Caesar cipher. And so a Caesar cipher, basically, it's just going to add a number to the characters, and then you can decrypt it using another technique. And so in this case, I'm going to have the cipher value be let me see. So I'll call it Cipher. And we'll make this another byte. And I'm just going to make the Cipher value 5. And so what we'll do is we'll make another loop here. And so the way this loop is going to, I'm going to change this loop up a little bit. And basically the loop is going to keep on going until we see this 0 character. So what I can do here is I can make the loop. So I'm going to call this the Cypher Loop, so C loop. And then I'm going to move into the AL register. Well, let me first get the start. So I'm going to say that I'm going to call it I'll move into, so I'll call this my message, and then I'll call this my cipher, just as the storage location. And I'm going to do this, I'll do 100, and I'll put it empty. And I'll move into the ESI, offset, so remember offset gets you the address of my message. And then I'll move into the AL. So I'll initialize this with my ECX. We'll make move into ECX 0. And then I'll move into the AL value. ESI plus ECX. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm also have an exit statement. I'll just call this next one. And so I'm going to jump. So I'm going to do a compare AL to 0. So basically, it's going to look for this null character at the end of the string. And then it's going to jump if equals. Also, what we can do is we can just move AL into a register, and if we need to do JZ, but we'll just do JE, next one. So this will say we're stopping. If not, what we're going to do is let me get the move EDI. So get the my Cipher message. Put in EDI. And so for this case, what we want to do is we want to move and say, we'll say the BL, so the lower register BL, or we have the AL in there. We want to add the AL value by the cipher. So this value up here. So it's going to basically add 5 to all the characters. And then we're going to move into ESI plus ECX. So notice here how in the braces, basically it's going to say, okay, I'm going to point to the memory location, not the actual summing of these values. So in this case, we'll do ECX. And then also notice, since this is a 32-bit register, that's why ECX has to be a 32-bit register, because you have to add in the same and the same. We'll do ECI plus, and we'll move the AL value in there. And then we'll just jump to the front of the loop if we get to this position. So I'm building this value. And then let's see where the I'm going to do 2 steps and see where the registers are. So we'll do EDI because this one's afterwards. I'll put this position in here. So you can see it simply, and then basically our message will be right after this. So I'm going to step over. So notice here I'm copying the number 41 into the register. You can see 41 here. Comparing to see if AL is 0, which is not. And then now I'm not going to jump. And then now see I'm going to move Cipher, so +5 plus AL. So this next step is going to move 46 here. And then notice how I have the number 46 in the register. When I step it over, I moved 46. Oops, I put it in the wrong spot. Let me change this real quick. Stop it. Try it one more time. So let's hear 46. So I have the letter F here. This is the newest number. And the only thing I changed was I put EDI, which is the destination. So notice here I have, this is going to be, this number here is 73. It's going to add 5, so it's going to be, oops, I made a mistake. What did I forget to do? I need to add 1 to the ECX. So let me run it one more time. Let's see if I actually can do it right this time. So 46 here. This next one should be 78. There we go. 78. And then notice here we have this encrypted value. So eventually when we get out of the loop, so I'll just run this to the end. We have an encrypted value here. And if we wanted to decrypt it, we could just do the reverse and subtract 5 from the number, and we should be able to get assembly language program example back. So I know this is a pretty brief lecture, but I just wanted to kind of touch on the basics of using arrays and strings. So the main thing we covered is basically for all media, for copying the media. So you can think of streaming as basically just an array that doesn't end. You want to use the ECI and the EDI for any type of media. So it can be strings, it can be video, it can be audio. This is the way you would copy this between memory locations, is using these 2 registers. So we're adding on top of the A, B, and CD registers, the flag registers, we have the ESI and EDI registers, as well as how to make blank arrays. So in this case, we have your array size, how many elements, I know it's kind of confusing, you want in this, and then your duplicate, what do you want in there? So question mark is essentially zeros, but basically it's an empty value. And then you can also put hard-coded values like I did here with the number 10. So I hope this kind of gets you started with using arrays and strings, and I'll talk to you in the next lecture.